How do you hope to pass on what you've learned once you complete the master's degree on to the next generation?
Yeah, so a lot of what I've learned and kind of already know is that for people that come from unrepresented backgrounds, a lot of the times services that they need and acquire are not going to be met compared to those that come from, that are considered as priority. So that's kind of another reason why I'm going into this field, is to make sure there's that equity. And so there's a difference between equality and equity. We're trying to make everything more equitable for everyone so that everyone has that same chance and that same opportunity in health services. And we have a long way to go in doing that. And so being able to do that not only for my Navajo people, but for others, and to make them aware, because when I tell them what I'm studying, there's a big question.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Career Education Learning Center podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Rivers. I am thrilled and elated to have Keona Hosteen on our show today. Keona is a master's student, first-year master's student at Northern Arizona University. How are you doing today, Keona?
Hi, Mitchell. It's been a while. I'm doing pretty good. I'm in 4 weeks into my graduate program, and I'm majoring in clinical speech language pathology. And if I remember clearly, you had mentioned that you had speech therapy growing up, which you mentioned you had missed, but you had progressed so well that you didn't need to be in speech therapy no more. And it's just a growing field that more people, it's in demand these days. And so I'm really glad to be a part of furthering my education and earning my master's to provide services where I live, which is on the Navajo Nation, on the reservation, and being able to tell a bit more about myself and my academic journey.
Man, yeah, your academic journey. And that started at Northern Arizona University, correct?
Yes.
So why did you choose to go to that school or university rather than another school that's in the Southwest area?
Yeah, so I'm actually from the state of New Mexico, but Arizona is like a sister, a neighboring state. So I completed my undergrad here at NAU, and NAU did have a master's program. So I just continued, and I felt like I was used to the faculty. I was used to the town of Flagstaff, and I thought it wouldn't be much of a big transition, just a bigger load of graduate courses compared to undergrad.
And thus far, in your 4 weeks in, as we had this recording, what have you learned that's different than what undergrad was?
So the difference, ideally 9 credits is considered full-time for graduate and 12 is for undergrad. So I'm currently taking more than that 9, but I still feel like there's like so much I have to do within the day and even on the weekend. I kind of miss being an undergrad, but I'm like, no, this is how graduate studies are beyond master's and PhD. And it's really time for me to realize that my priorities are going to change, especially to prepare for classes. I have classes every other day, and it feels like the weekend just goes by so fast. And I'm like, where did all the time go? Like it was literally just Monday, and now it's like already Monday again.
And you stated, and you're in the same field kind of like that you were an undergrad. And as you stated earlier, yes, I needed help with my speech. And it's hard for people to believe that I had a speech impediment and how much I talk these days, more or less conversational rather than being out in public. But I'm learning to do both. And you are much needed. Now, you from the Navajo Nation. Is that why you chose to go into speech biology and pass on what you've learned, not only from English, but from your native language?
Yes. So a little bit to tell you about why I'm into this field is actually, it was the last thing on my list, to be honest. I envisioned myself being someone other than a speech language pathologist. And this, I kind of was in the back of my mind because my parents worked in educational systems, so like in the schools, specifically in special education. So I kind of got inspiration and just being aware of like how my family worked in those fields. And like, I guess I kind of always was interested in that, but I wanted to go a different route and working one-on-one with students and, you know, being able to find that voice that they feel like they don't have and being able to improve their skills. Although some of them, the communication disorders they have may not go away like within one snap or so, but they can manage it and control it through time.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we do not have much of is time. and then it goes fast, as you said it before. And so if dealing with time and dealing with trying to pass on from your culture down to the younger generation, how is that working out for you also? Because getting your master's degree, when you complete your master's degree, of course, there's going to be more eyes watching you, right? And more than young kids like, wow, she done it. Can I do it? How do you hope to pass on what you've learned once you complete your master's degree on to the next generation?
Yeah, so a lot of what I've learned and kind of already know is that for people that come from unrepresented backgrounds, a lot of the times services that they need and acquire are not going to be met compared to those that that are considered as priority. So that's kind of another reason why I'm going into this field, is to make sure there's that equity. And so there's a difference between equality and equity. We're trying to make everything more equitable for everyone so that everyone has that same chance and that same opportunity in health services. And we have a long way to go in doing that. Being able to do that not only for my Navajo people, but for others, and to make them aware, because when I tell them what I'm studying, there's a big question mark there. Like, oh, you just teach people how to speak better. Like, there's so much more there's so many more layers to that. Like, there's certain concentrations that people work with. It could be like with a pediatrician SLP, a medical SLP. It could be a school-based SLP, or those that work in the nursery homes, or like all those aspects. I think that's the really unique part about the SLP field, is you can work anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that. Unfortunately, I've had a friend that recently had a stroke, and I know past stroke victims, and they had to start all the way over. So that's something that your field will kind of address, is to also work with medical people, also to people who may have lost their speech from certain diseases, or like a stroke or heart attack or whatever they may have, where they had to start over, in type of brain injuries, right? That they had to start over and learn how to speak. And that's something Joe Field would address?
Yes. And also going through graduate school, we're doing a lot of like case studies and articles that really do underline like what I had just talked about. And it really does push me to like want to be someone to increase the percentage of, for instance, for Native Americans in the field. I looked it up, and it's less than 1%, which is pretty crazy. Like, there's going to have to be a lot of us to be able to make that change into 1% at least. So that just shows how like more diverse we have to be when we look at areas of healthcare opportunities.
Yeah, it's much more in the healthcare area than people realize. And I said it before, you talking about people who have brain that had to come from brain seizures, or maybe accidents, car accidents, or whatever accidents they may have around the house. I mean, there's a wide open field. And I just think, Keona, that is not getting from maybe the counselors or people in college to pass it on to high school people that maybe this is the field you want to go into. And especially, I think they should be recruiting more people to go into that field. And so part of that, I feel like it's part of recruiting, letting people know, because they think it's just a small area. As you stated before, they think when you tell people about what you do, they're like, oh, that's all you do. But as you have discovered, it's a much broader area of study, and it helps people in so many ways, especially your community you live in. And so going into that field, I think what you're doing is great. And then when you graduate, you can even push and go back and recruit more Native Americans into that field. And that way they understand what that field contains and does. So when you was an undergraduate, I remember last time you said you went overseas. How was that experience?
To be honest, it feels like I went a long time ago, but it was really, I went in the spring of 2023, which was, I had the opportunity to go abroad to Seoul, South Korea through the International Student Exchange Program. And I applied through there. And the idea was like, I go there and someone comes back from that school, an exchange there. And I just had a fantastic experience being there. I took like electives, and I got to learn a little bit more about their culture. And I really got to get to know people there. And I also got to tutor the Korean students in English, when that really consisted of like talking casually like we are here, or like going through questions that they would need to pass their English exam, and other things. They just want to get to know you because you're from like America. So they're just interested about what's going on there. Like, is it true that this happens? So
and so I think that experience, and we have brought it up because, again, I think the things that need to be done, especially as far as telling young people, they give them more options. I think studying abroad is very important. I've had past guests that's gone to Africa, to Asia, South America, and I think it's important for young students who are watching this show to go ahead and go abroad if you have the opportunity. And you can see here where Keona said that experience really helped her. So when you were in undergrad school, we talked about as far as high school students we're going to address now. Did you receive any type of scholarship, any funds to attend college?
Yes. So throughout college, I did advocate for myself to apply for every scholarship that I was eligible for, whether it was related to like Native American scholarships, to the university itself, and really just looking out for outlets. And I was really big. I did research prior before I put the due dates, and I made reminders to let you fill this out. And another thing I will say about that is if you know you're going to apply for a scholarship and the time is coming, reach out to your professors, reach out to that person that you know can best talk about your ability, about why you should earn this scholarship, because college is not cheap these days. So whatever source you can find, go for it. Luckily, throughout undergrad, I was able to find enough funding to be able to to not be stressed about the remaining balance that I had. And coming into graduate, that's another bigger step, because then there's more fees and everything. Every little charge really is like,
it never stops.
Yeah.
It never stops. I mean, we're in a capitalist system. And if you know going to a big university that you're attending, everything's about the budget and funding, right? Everything's about money, funding, budget. And so colleges watch the bottom line as much as any other business here in America and abroad, right? It's you have to make a profit and make money in order to stay operational. Let's put it that way from a business standpoint. And so as we are the customers, especially customers that you attend college look at you as a customer, right? And they try to provide as much service as possible, but they have a budget outline there. And so you as a customer coming in as a young person going to college, you want to use as much resources as available to you because you're paying those fees. And so when you get a chance to go abroad or attend conferences, did you attend conferences while you was an undergrad?
Yes, I attended conferences every year, I would say, except for 2020 because
COVID
turned out to be virtual. But then they were like, let's go back in person. That will probably be a better experience for others. So a few conferences that I went to, the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, which is also referred to as ACES, which is held almost every October. And I'm also really happy to announce that I'm going to be going again in October in San Antonio, Texas. And really, it's just a big place where a network of Native American people of all over the place, including Canada, Alaska, everywhere you could really think of, but not just limited to Native American. It's also open to the public. It's a big place where you network with college and career fairs, companies such as Boeing, Raytheon, and like even Apple, Wells Fargo, all of those big companies you can think of that contribute to like the STEM field or even like business or many areas in that way. And really, it's just a good way to get to know other people, maybe find people that you went to school with, because you never know these conferences. There's just so many people. You might just run into someone you knew in the past. And really, it's a good chance for you to grow as a person and tell people about what you're going into. And you might just find that big opportunity you want for yourself.
Yes, and I agree with you. Even in your field, people, even if you're in the educational field, people know it's all about networking and who you know in order to get certain jobs or either to get in certain positions or a certain company, right? It's who you know, not always what you know, it's who you know. It's kind of a balance of both. And so how much do you think those conferences help you in the future here? How much do you think those conferences going to help you in the future? How much do you think those networks are important? So that way we have young people not only going abroad, as we mentioned before, but also attending conferences. How do you feel that they should approach that?
These conferences are literally like what you make it out to be. So it kind of will start with you. So there's like a lot of sessions. There's a lot of like webinars that are held that you can go to. Really try to like plan ahead of time so you know which ones to go to. Sometimes they get full and the door closes. So just prioritizing, like if you really want to go there, first one outside the door. And also just a lot of people say to print out your resume, or like people are going the faster way, which is like, oh, here, just take a picture of my QR code. That's my resume. The people are getting fancy with how they present themselves. Business cards too, if you want. And just really starting that conversation. You might be scared at at first, but you won't know until you start. Other than that, you're going to regret because you're like, I should have did this, or like you're going to think about all those what if scenarios when you should just do it while you're there.
So, wow. I mean, your journey thus far in your career field, it's really been a lot more than mine, Keona. I mean, I didn't go abroad. I didn't attend conferences. I wasn't networking. I did get a scholarship. So I didn't do that. And I used the military and a company's military scholarships and a myriad of other ways in order working part-time and full-time jobs, mainly part-time during school and full-time in the summers, to complete my academic career by working, right? There's a myriad of ways that you can do that as non-profit to help you do that too, right? You contact everybody, scholarships, grants, whatever you can do to complete the education financially also. So I always try to tell students, whatever way you can get some free money anyway, can help you. And then, like you've done, you prepare for yourself after college, right? You prepare for yourself for your career. And I want students to know they can do that also. Discover that your experiences that you had in the past is helping you now being in graduate school.
So one thing I didn't mention compared to, I think, a lot of students these days is college is usually in person. Fortunately for like my undergrad, I completed majority of it online. And that was due to like personal reasons. And one specifically I would say is that I did help caretake for my late grandma. So a lot of it came from like my passion of like being there for my grandma, because I knew that my family worked. So like I was like, who's going to be there during the day? Who's going to make sure? Yes, there was someone at the house with my grandma, but like just being able to know that there's like another female, having that level of comfort for her, and just I think it really did reshape my purpose for being an SLP, because working with a variety of ages, starting from like kids, like little kids to teens, adults, and then elderly, you can work with all of those people like that. And I think having that experience with my grandmother and juggling schoolwork and also trying to be an advocate for pursuing higher education and being like a role model for some was really something that I keep to mind, my experiences in the past and even to now. So now that I'm in the master's, I know that anyway, I have a big responsibility in finishing the program, and also just encouraging students that, like you had mentioned before, like you guys can do it as well, or like this person did it, so I might as well take a shot at it.
Now, when you was an undergrad, when did you realize that you want to go for your master's, or has that always been a dream of yours?
I made that decision like maybe my start of my senior year of undergrad. I kind of told myself, because I was pretty stressed out from everything I was doing while online, I thought maybe I'm going to take a gap year. And I was like, there's a lot of thoughts that came to mind, like, why would I want to do that? It's fresh in my mind. I'm still as young as I can keep going. And my parents who are telling me like, well, if you stop, there's a good chance you won't go back. I was like, so I said, let me just apply to these schools and see what happens. And like, I made my decision, and here I am 4 weeks into my graduate program.
Yeah, I mean, life happens, and every situation is different. I've had students in the past on this podcast that took a gap year. I had some that took a half a semester, some on years, and then some that went back, maybe 4 or 5 years later on. Each situation different, so you have to read the room. And if you felt like most people do go to the master's, like, look, I got it fresh in my mind, let me go ahead and go straight out of undergrad into grad school. Don't take a gap year and go while it's fresh and I'm young and I'm pretty and good looking. Oh, I'm sorry, that's me. But I mean, it's great that you considered going for your master's program. We need to push for more minorities and more women to go get their master's degrees. There's a bit shortage there getting their master's degrees. There seem to be some type of, because businesses are so strong here in America, they don't really, push as much, because people talk about being an entrepreneur like I am and that you can make money. So why go get your master's degree, or why go get your MBA? And I think it's a great thing to do, because then it increases your chances and learn more with people and learn more about the field that you're going into. So even in your short 4 weeks, have you learned, even in the short 4 weeks that you've been there, much as you learned in an undergrad, it's really trying to, you're like, wow, I did not know this even in my short time here in the master's program.
Yes. But for graduate, I feel like it's really like, it has to stick with you. Like, a lot of professors will put you like in a situation where like, okay, let's say you have a client, given this, given that. How would you apply to this? How would you go about it? So it's like, so instead of thinking about it, like just think about it in the back of your head now, it's like, apply it, talk about it, put it on paper. So it's like, I'm not an SLP yet, but you're preparing me for one now. So it's like, in the terminology, I'm like, Am I doing what's best interest of the client? Am I following like what I'm supposed to do as an SLP? And one thing that I like is like, so you as a practicing SLP, they're already using those terms, like, because in 2 years, you'll be on your way.
Yeah, they're putting it in your head. They're putting it in your thought already. That's one thing businesses do too. You might not be there yet, but when you be there, are you prepared? You're already a leader, right? They put that in your head, if you're already an entrepreneur, put in your head, you're already there. So that way, when you get there, you already know. I know Michael Jordan talked about many times that, they say, oh, how'd you make that last shot? And he would say, well, I've done it 1,000 times in my head. They want you to already be prepared for that. When you get in position, you are prepared for that. And they already give you hypotheticals already, Yeah. And I was telling my son earlier that when you take those state exams, you have to know those concepts. You're not going to repeat definition terms and this term and that term back. When I took my state exam for life insurance, health insurance, securities, brokers exams, that was totally different than what I took on a computer. And I'm like, the classroom, like, man, this is tough. And so they already trying to prepare you for what you're going to be going into in the future. So since we're coming to the end of this podcast, and I enjoyed having you so much, Keona, do you have any parting words for our students who may be going to graduate school or considering going to graduate school?
Yes. So I know previously you had mentioned everyone has their own, like, a journey, and it starts differently for everyone. But I just want to put it out there that you will define your journey and how long it takes you to accomplish whatever it is. And I know we've been talking about school and everything, but this can be applied to like what you do in your own like daily life, whether it's a part-time or full-time job, it's something you love doing or something you're trying to figure out to see what's really for you. Because I think that today people like to rush into the idea that this is for me. I know I'm going to do this. And then when they get into it, they take a step back and you're like, let me rethink about this. Or like, I don't know about that. So that's the really, I think the great thing about our mind is like we're quick to make changes. Our mind is ever changing and our education is ever changing. Like we're learning new things every day that we don't realize. And that's another thing for an SLP field, like the more you know, the more knowledgeable you are. So that's something that I'm really like passionate about, especially for me. Right now, I'm telling myself I want to be a pediatric SLP, so working with kids, but I'm taking anatomy, I'm doing like swallowing and like seeing what's happening. Maybe I want to be a medical SLP. So, just like that.
Well, I mean, the field is wide open and I think you're right. Yeah. And I, inform students all the time, you're going to change your mind many times. Look at me, I'm 50 plus and I'm changing from being in corporate America to going to be an entrepreneur at this late stage of my life. And so it's never too late to change. And you're going to change a lot of times throughout your life and just go for what you're passionate about at that time. We're human beings. We're going to change. And like I said, we're adaptable change. And so you must be adaptable. You must be, because computers are changing every day. Phones are changing every day. Everything around us is changing all the time, right? And so you must adapt those change and then go with it. And so I think that even today doing this podcast, I wouldn't have done like 10, 15 years ago. You wouldn't have the technology to do it 15, 20 years ago. And so we're adapting to change. So thank you so much, Keona, for coming on our show today. I really do appreciate it. And you're going to have to come back when you finish your master's degree.
Oh, yes. I do look forward to that. And meanwhile, I would do my best to finish out my first semester and really like do the best I can with everything, because graduate school is quite something.
It really is, and it's the difference. But thank you so much again. And I'd like to thank our viewers and listeners for joining me, Mr. Rivers, on another episode of Career Education Learns in the Podcast. We're making your career dreams a reality. God bless.